I saw what first looked like one leg and then a second leg come out from this brush. And my first, my mind goes straight to hog. It was dark and I thought there was a hog over there. Well, within seconds, I could see the whole entire figure, which walked upright. It stepped out.
The Codega is a guide and a storyteller, escorting you through the night, lighting the way, warding off thieves, ghosts, demons, and other oddities. Along the journey, his companions would often share with him the most curious of stories that he'd record in his codex. Perhaps you just might find yourself traveling with the Codega and sharing one of yours. You ever hear about the Honey Island swamp monster? It's not as famous as Bigfoot or the Boggy Creek monster, but if you talk to folks down in Louisiana, they're going to tell you it's just as real. They say it's this big hulking thing, 7 feet tall, covered in shaggy gray hair and walking on two legs, of course, like a man, but not quite a man. It's got these eerie yellow eyes, and the smell, well, they say you know it's close before you see it, like rotting garbage mixed with something swampy and sour. There's a story back from the 70s about a guy named Ted Williams, not the baseball player, a fisherman who lived in Honey Island. One evening, he was out checking his lines when he heard something moving through the brush, something big. At first, he thought it was just a gator, but then he saw it. Tall, broad shoulders, covered in matted hair, standing on two legs and watching him. Ted froze, and for a moment, neither of them moved. Then, in an instant, the thing turned and slipped back into the trees without a sound. Ted never liked talking about it much, but when he did, he'd swear up and down that it wasn't a bear or a man. Ain't nothing out there like that, he'd say. And that's the thing. There's been sightings for years. Strange footprints with 3 toes, livestock found torn apart, people hearing guttural growls deep in the swamp at night. Some folks thinks it's just old stories, a way to keep outsiders away from the bayou. But others, they know better. All right, folks, welcome back to another episode of Codega's Codex of Curiosities. I'm your host, Rye, guiding you through the strange, through the swamps, the unexplained, and the downright bizarre. And tonight, yeah, we got a good one. I just talked about the Honey Island swamp monster, one of those cryptids that doesn't get the same kind of fame as Bigfoot. But if you ask people who've seen it, they'll tell you it's just as real. And that's what I love about these stories, is the regional legends, the creatures that lurk just out your back door and in swamps and out in the deep bush. You know that something, like people swear that they've encountered something, but they just can't quite prove it other than just their actual encounter, their experience that they saw it. And all right, and speaking of someone who knows a thing or two about cryptids and legends, tonight it's the one and only Lyle Blackburn. And I'm sure you probably already know his work. He's written a handful of books like The Beast of Boggy Creek, Lizard Man, and Momo. He's even been in documentaries. He's a musician as well, Ghoultown. Come on, he's probably one of the best out there when it comes to researching and telling these stories. So we're going to jump into his work and maybe even hear some of his lesser known cases that deserve some more attention. And without wasting any more of your time, let's bring Lyle to the stage. Lyle, welcome to Codega's Codex of Curiosities.
Thanks for having me.
I'm glad to have you on. Very excited to have this. You're a legend in the community, and I'm so happy to have you here. So before we go too far, and I kind of did a little bit of an intro for you, but if there's anything I missed, please feel free to fill our viewers and listeners in.
Well, yeah, it's kind of a long and a resume that has a lot of stuff, from narrating the Small Town Monsters films, writing the books, things like that, appearing on various TV shows. But it's all stuff that I've enjoyed and been able to share, at least my perspective on things, and to bring some of these stories to light, or at least update them on what I consider a wide range of cryptids. I mean, I'm from Texas, so a lot of my research has been in the South. And I love that, the swampy, scary kind of stories. We have a lot of cryptids down here like that, and that's what I love, and the terrain that I like to explore. So it's been a great thing to be able to have a platform, I guess, to share this information.
That is awesome. And like I think, and I'm guessing that, like you're we all have like an entry drug almost of sorts into this world. And was yours the Beast of Boggy Creek, or was there something else that brought you in that like just captured you?
Well, I first heard of Bigfoot in third grade. At that time, I was totally into movie monsters, anything scary and spooky from as far back as I can possibly remember. And then in third grade, I got a book called Strange But True by Daniel Cohen. And that had chapters, real brief chapters on Bigfoot, Yeti, and the Loch Ness Monster. And that's when I was like, whoa, these are like, what do you mean, like monsters you could see in real life? I mean, I knew the difference between movie makeup like Frankenstein and that's what first, sort of piqued my interest. I grew up hunting with my father. He's an avid bow hunter, so ever since I could walk practically, I was out, on our lease, camping and doing stuff like that. So I love the outdoors and sort of had that perspective. And then what really did it for me is we went to see a movie called The Legend of Boggy Creek in the 70s sometime. I don't know. I was really young. And that dramatized stories of a Sasquatch like creature there in southwest Arkansas, which was about 3 hours from where I lived. So at that point, that was like everything came together. And Boggy Creek was, I mean, the movie itself was sort of a docudrama, but was very much a horror movie. And it was scary. And it was like, okay, this is the best, coolest stuff because this is real.
That is awesome, and it's close to home as well. Like you're saying, you're reading a book about Loch Ness monster in Scotland, and that's so far away. Or you got the upper northwest as well. That's where a lot of the larger Bigfoot are and whatnot. And but this is near home, so that's what fueled it. Now, so that's what kind of fueled it. What keeps this drive going? Because you are so involved in this. Why do you keep going? What keeps you driven?
Well, I think for me, I mean, it's the research and telling the stories is the basis. I mean, I have a number of books now. People will come up to my table at an event and say, "Well, are these books about your sightings or about you?" I'm like, "Well, I'm in there, but this isn't about me. This is about documenting real life cases where numerous and often very credible witnesses reported seeing something that others say does not exist." And that was always, just like the Legend of Boggy Creek, it was simply like dramatizing the sightings that real people reported. This is what really happened. So to me, it's always about that. It's not about, I'm not out to prove anything. I'm not a scientist. I don't pretend to know anything more than anybody else, but just that experience and going into these areas and sort of digging up all the information about certain cryptids or a case, or being able to go in those areas myself where I may have a sighting, because I still do love the outdoors, and the outdoors adventure is always better if you might can see a cryptid. So the drive for me is always that, and not, you know not any other um, sort of grand um, goal in it. I just still am that kid who saw that movie and was fascinated by this and wanted to know more.
Fantastic. Yeah, I hear you as well. Like I had books when I was much younger. All these mysterious books. I think it was like one of those encyclopedias that was like for kids, but it was all about mysteries. And yeah, the Loch Ness monster, Bigfoot. It was so intriguing for me that it captured me as well. And then some of my own experiences just kind of solidified that for me. And I'm sure like yourself. What is your most like for you, your experiences? You are out there, so Tell me about some of your experiences.
Well, for me, I had not had a sighting. Some people get started in this because they have a sighting and then they're motivated to find out more or end up meeting people who, are going to not laugh at your story. For me, it was like, I wanted to have these things. A lot early on, we hunted in South Texas where there are like reports of chupacabras and stuff now, but I mean, there wasn't a lot of Bigfoot sightings. We weren't maybe in the best place. But over the years, in investigating stuff all around multiple states, certainly things have happened. Um, one of the weirder ones was in the Ocala National Forest in Florida some years ago, in which I was there with my research partner Cindy, and we were there like in January, very deserted. We sort of the only people out there, and we were hiking around at night, and I we hear this something like hitting on a tin can, like it seemed purposeful. So I ended up plunging into the brush, and something got up and took off running. And as I chased it for, you know, 15 yards or whatever, it would stop. But I never could get eyes on it. I chased it and chased it on in there until finally I'm like, I can't go any further. I'll be lost. And, you know, maybe it's luring me to my ultimate death. But I never quite saw it, but it's like that adrenaline where, and I've hunted deer and I've hunted hogs and all this, and this sounded very big, and it was seemed to be evading me in a way that made me believe that possibly it was a skunk ape, and this is a place where there's been a lot of sightings, but I never put a visual on it. The best sighting, if you will, which has been ironically very recent. I've seen a few things that I would say, bah, that's possible, but I didn't get enough good look at it to sit here and say 100%. But last last year, in April, I've gone up to Fouke, Arkansas, where Boggy Creek is, and for I don't know countless times for the last 15 years at least. So a lot of feet on the ground in there, and mostly nothing happens. But we had been searching for what someone had reported in being a pile of bones. I'd been up there 3 weeks earlier and found some hog skulls sort of on a trail, and they looked like they'd been placed there purposefully, but it was kind of spooky. And I took a picture and put it on the internet. It's a cool picture. Well, somebody said,
Nonetheless,
well,
yeah, exactly.
we found a whole pile of bones, and it had not just hog bones, but deer bone. And I thought, well, people kill hogs and throw the bones, but don't usually throw deer into that. People will use that unless maybe they're poachers, but with most exceptions, they do not do that. So I thought, okay, this is intriguing. I was up there 3 weeks later along this very swampy lake. I mean, this picture, the most swampy, spooky, like Scooby Doo looking landscape. Something straight out of a horror movie. That's what it looks like. Beautiful scenery, but it's very spooky, and alligators, cottonmouths, the whole deal. I go along the edge of that lake looking for this uh, alleged boneyard, and hike way back in there. And I was with another researcher and my girlfriend. We were hiking till late afternoon, way back in there, and kind of getting around. And the Sulphur River runs in there, kind of behind this lake. And I had never been quite that far back. And by this time, I'm like, there's no bones. We're almost to the end of the lake. It's probably underwater. So I saw this little game trail, and they were about 15 yards behind me. I just randomly went up it because I had been hiking through this really tough terrain where it's really mucky and hard to walk in. Here's just a straight little trail through the woods. I walk up it, and it's fairly clear, so I'm not making a lot of noise, and I hear what sounded like footsteps. I look to my right where I heard the noise, and there was there's a lot of brush, and then the trees, and sporadic areas where there's undergrowth. I saw what first looked like one leg, and then a second leg come out from this brush. And my first, my mind goes straight to hog. It was dark, and I thought there was a hog over there. Well, within seconds, I could see the whole entire figure, which walked upright. It stepped out and was into the open within seconds. And at that point, your mind thinks, well, there's a person. I mean, it's walking on two legs. As I observed it, there's no clothes. It was very dark, very black in color, uniformly dark. No, um, no discernible human characteristics whatsoever. And of course, as your mind runs through the possibilities very quickly, you realize that's not a person, and it's perhaps 7 feet tall. And it walked, I only saw it for 3 or 4 seconds before it was now obscured by the brush again. But within that time, of course, there it is. That's those few seconds where you realize I just saw basically what people have been telling me they've seen in varying degrees down in these parts for the last 100 years. And so I had two choices, and I should have probably took the first one, which would be to do what I did in Ocala, is just run after this thing. But I thought, well, I got two people over here that are standing 15 yards away that if I can alert them, surely they can see it too. And now I've got some corroboration. So I kind of had to go down the trail and get their attention, and with as fast as I could, is to alert them that there is something over there and we need to put eyes on it. Um, so we did, and we started sort of methodically going down where the thing had disappeared and started looking, and it gets kind of drops way off down there and goes back by that lake with varying degrees of brush and open areas. And we look and we start scanning the area, nothing. Well, I can only assume that whatever it was, and the time it took me to go alert them, obviously it probably knew we were there in the first place, I assume, but um, it just went in some direction I wasn't aware of, and that was it. We did not see it again. So unfortunately, but yeah, that was the most dramatic, and certainly, um, definitely that will keep you enthusiastic about this.
Of course, of course. You often wondered. Like I've heard from another encounter that they are extremely smart, and that they want you to see them going in a certain direction, and then when you don't see them, it's kind of like switch back or move into a better in a better position, or they have another one standing there watch over you, like trying to draw you in that way. So who knows at that point. That is fascinating. Now, after doing all this research, like I know you've looked into a lot, like not only your books, like Lizardman, Momo, the Boggy Creek creature, now what what is the most interesting one to you? I know, I think I also said Mothman as well, because I know you worked in part with the Mothman documentary as well. What cryptid is the most interesting um, out of all of them that you find right now?
Well, I mean, to me, the Boggy Creek case is always sort of the one that I'm most enamored with, and I think again, because I love these. I love the Bigfoot cases, and I love those that are kind of a little bit more scary and swampy. So that's always sort of a given, that one, and that was my first book, The Beast of Boggy Creek, um, which was just sort of a exploration to find out more about what I had seen in that movie for myself. I didn't even really envision any of this or whatever would happen after I put the book out. It was just I did it for me, and then realized, oh, a lot of people are interested in this, as well, apparently. So, but beyond that, um, man, there are some, that I think lately, sort of this reptilian humanoid thing, is interesting. And what I wrote my second book was about that Bishopville lizard man case from the late '80s. But more moreover, as I've talked about this over the years and people respond to the books, and you get these other sightings, and I've gotten several where people talk about they're not so much humanoid lizard men, if you will. These are more like upright walking alligators or dinosaurs sort of um, entities. I've gotten several of these from very, very credible sounding, very credible as far as I can tell, people who have seen these, and it's like they're almost like living dinosaurs. Very creepy. I mean, one of these was in fact in Texas along what's called the Brazos River, where I've actually canoed down when I was younger. And these guys were just fishing there, and they heard some splashing, and it was late evening, and they spotlighted what they couldn't believe, this thing walking upright. It was humanoid enough to walk upright, but it was much more reptilian. Um, just scary. And of course, they just threw the fishing rods and ran. I mean, these are country guys. They're not going to run for just for any reason. Um, and there had been two sightings of that. So those have been really intriguing. I think for me, it's like there's not a lot of sightings. There's a few. It's not like all of a sudden everybody on the internet's putting out these out. They're just the isolated and really scary and totally unexplainable sightings.
Now, do you feel that the sightings are ramping up? If like it, are they ramping up because there's more and more cryptids for some reason coming out of the woodworks, or is it ramping up because maybe we're having the ability to take more pictures or be out there more? There's more of us. I feel that maybe there is a little bit. Well, I've seen more sightings. I've heard of more sightings, and I'm just want to know your take on that.
I think it's kind of a combo of all of that, really. I think, first off, it's easier to share sightings because of the internet and because of the ease of social media, and with podcasts becoming much more popular. Like it's easy to tell about these, whether they happened yesterday or 30 years ago. You get these that you never heard of. So I think the ease in which we can post about this. I think also the popularity. Look at all the TV shows in the last decade. I mean, um, there's so many cryptid shows and stuff, and the interest in this, and people want to get enthusiastic. And I think that makes a platform where people feel like they're not going to be laughed at because they saw people on a show talking about the very same thing and say, well, I saw that, and I think, but there is also, I think, some trend to it. Like if you look at Dogman, 15 years ago, nobody reported any Dogman sightings to me. I didn't know anybody. I knew like the Beast of Bray Road, and there was some old cases from Texas and stuff. But then suddenly, in the last like 6, 7 years, it's just a, a tsunami of Dogman sightings to where it just seems like werewolves are running amok. So I think there's some amount of uh, again how you interpret what you see in the world. If you don't know anything about a dog man, but you know about Bigfoot and you see something big and hairy, you might say, "Oh, I saw a Bigfoot." But if you just listen to people tell about a scary dog man sighting and you saw some, you say, "Well, I think it was a dog man." So you get a lot of stuff because even like my sighting is very fast, very fleeting. I can't say 100% because I didn't touch the thing. Um, so I think you get this makes it seem like there's cryptids or more cryptids and cryptids running everywhere, but pop culture has embraced cryptids. I mean, you go to the Mothman festival and there's 20,000 people or more. Like years ago when we were doing this, you were lucky if you knew a few people who even read any book. So I think that it's just something that has become it's cool. People like it. It's acceptable. And it makes it seem like there's so many more cryptids. But truthfully, it's just that it's all the information coming at once. And it also gets lumped into wishful thinking, like, I think I saw one. Well, that's a sighting. And here's, but if you distill that down, there certainly there can't be too many cryptids. My dad's been hunting for 80 years and never seen anything. And he goes in the woods all the time. That's what he does. Elk hunting, deer hunting, javelinas. He's kind of hunted everything. So if it was true that they're running amok, I mean, he would have just shot it. So he would have an answer. Him and my uncle, I'm like, if they see Bigfoot, it's over.
They're taking the shot. They're taking the shot.
Yeah.
No, that I like your take on it. And I think you are completely correct. It's kind of like with the social media, it's really blowing up. And people are. I think also people are feeling more comfortable because years ago when there was one or two people saying this, people would ridicule them. And now, like you're saying, like the Mothman festival, it's kind of like the cool thing. And so everybody, some people wish they've seen it, or I think I saw something. And, I've had some experiences where I myself, I will tell people, I don't know what I saw. I'm not saying it's this, it could be this, it could be that. I don't know what I saw. I saw something, but what it was, I don't know. It was kind of like you, like there was no definitive, oh, that was 100% this, because I got to see it full. It stood there and posed for me, and I was able to say that's exactly what you are. But yeah, and I think there's a lot of people out there like myself where we question some of our experiences. And I think it's good. I think it's good to have a healthy dose of skepticism as well, so that people don't get carried away too far. Of like, I saw a leg or something small, and it could have been a bear, could have been anything. It's like we gotta approach it with a little bit of skepticism. Now, with this missing 411 phenomena, what is your take on that one? Do you believe that this is the making of Bigfoot? Is it just people getting lost, or is there something else at play with this missing 411?
Well, I think a number of those cases are certainly unexplainable. Um, and, again, David, he just documents the cases. He's not trying to, I mean, he's got his opinions, but it's a matter of just, hey, look at all this stuff. Um, so again, it's just like I was saying, it's like people see stuff and it's how you perceive it. People people go missing and get lost all the time. I've growing up hunting, especially at some time back, my dad, he never carried a compass, any regard for anything like that. I mean, of course, he had a bow, and we never even carried water. We were totally unprepared for any disaster. We didn't think like that. And it wasn't until I took some military training with Marines that I realized all about survival and what you need that you should have. But back then, it was just walk into the woods with the bow, and that was it. And we got lost many times. I was lost with my dad a number of times, and it got scary. But he's like, oh, we'll find our way out. It's not like we went out into the most, deepest, we're not into the Amazon. Um, and he's gotten lost, and he'll tell me stories about that where he's gotten lost. He at one time had to stay out overnight because he got lost. And my dad is like, he is a woodsman. And so it is very, very easy to get turned around in the woods. And certainly older cases where they either didn't know how to use a compass, and without the use of a cell phone or GPS, um, I think we can dismiss a lot of that as humans are unprepared and they don't know what they're doing, and it is very, very easy to get lost. But you look at some of those where, the little kid said the big bear carried me into the woods and he helped me, or some weird thing like that, or the Dennis Martin case where, somebody saw this big hairy looking person, uh, possibly carrying a kid. I mean, those, something's amiss. I mean, they're strange things, and I know some, the woods is full of weird stuff and things we can't explain. I would surely say that there is some perhaps even paranormal aspect to disappearances and things into places that we don't yet understand, or don't understand the circumstances, which makes that very scary. People like, oh my gosh, this is scary, that disappearing, because a lot of those are unexplainable. The searchers can't find them. These are trained people, not all of it can be human error. And those are the scarier ones.
I agree, especially the ones where they searched an area and they come back and then there's something there that wasn't there before. Whether it be the person or something left there of that person's belongings, and it's like it's something or someone is definitely messing with them, and
Mhm.
it really makes it to this terrifying kind of thriller kind of in a way. Um, Now you're kind of saying some paranormal or something like that, or more of unexplainable. I know there's a lot of people that believe that there is some sort of connection between, and I don't say paranormal, but we'll say like possibly UFO with Bigfoot or Dogman of sorts. Do you believe that there is a connection there? And if so, how so?
Well, for me, it's even a further leap, to try to draw a connection between two things that we can't even define one exactly.
True, true.
There's a tendency to lump these mysteries together, but I've interviewed hundreds and hundreds of people who have seen, say, Bigfoot. And none of, I'd say, well, none, save maybe somebody trying to mention that somebody saw a UFO here once, but it wasn't like, these people just saw a creature in the woods. They didn't report a UFO, no weird lights, no nothing. It's just that. Those are a good section of people I've interviewed personally. And you could ask many of my colleagues that the UFO connection is a big leap, because you don't have, and no one's report. I say no one's. There's a few maybe, but it's not like I saw a UFO and a Bigfoot got off of it. Well, there was a Bigfoot and somebody had a UFO sighting. Now we're putting them together, but that it may have no connection. Um, with paranormal, it seems natural that after all these years, we don't have any proof of something, that the theories get wilder, and that's only natural. It's like, um, but I think we got to be careful not to discredit nature. I mean, there are animals that you can go and try to look for and not find. Your average person going in the woods, if you're going to go try to find a wolverine or something, good luck. Bears, animals are made to be camouflaged. That's their whole thing, is survival. You're in their domain. They can do things that may seem magical or supernatural, but this is nature. I mean, chameleons can change colors. It's not paranormal, but it's, whoa, that's crazy. And
I agree with you. I've mentioned that before with like cuttlefish. Where we're looking at like squid or octopus. They're able to change their color and blend in and almost become invisible. And it's some people are like, and I'm not in any camp per se. I believe it could be. I'm open to all possibilities, but there we have to say that yeah, nature is resilient. If something wants to be camouflaged, there's ways that nature can actually make that happen.
right, and so, I mean, I like the romantic view of like Bigfoot. You're a hunter and you're going to go find this elusive creature, and not to kill it, but just like you can take a picture or whatever. That sort of, it's there, because if you say they're paranormal, it's like, well, we got no hope. We'll never find it. Forget it. It's like, why am I even out here if it can just jump through a portal? But part of the portal problem is that, why is it that, especially what I've researched, in person, are these sightings happening in places where they're remote, in places where things could hide, in wooded areas? Why doesn't something pop out on my street? Why don't I get my neighbors saying they've seen Bigfoot in, an urban area? So, I mean, maybe that's purposeful, but I'm open to whatever. I don't claim to know the answers. And, um, you get into things like Mothman, they just, those have a paranormal aspect to them no matter how you look at it. If that's what the people saw and all those sightings, and you just don't know. So I think we should be open and tolerant of whatever people view. The problem is when people say they know. When I know what this. No, no. We can only speculate and say I believe this is the case, or I theorize, or whatever. Have that critical thinking until you know we're all at zero, and the cryptids are winning because no one can prove one. So we have to be open-minded about all the possibilities and not claim that we know, because they're just elusive.
I agree totally. Yeah, it's when someone claims to be an expert in this, and I'm like, well, no, 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 you're not. You can claim to be an expert, but you're truly not. We're all, maybe you've done a lot of research, but we can never be truly an expert unless you have one sitting there that you've gone through and dissected, and or has allowed you to photograph it completely and video it and everything. But unfortunately, we're not experts. We're school children trying to figure out these mysteries on our own.
Right. And I mean, I've seen people, like, sometimes I'll do an interview with the newspaper and it'll put Bigfoot expert. Says, I'm like, oh God. And people are like, who made you an expert? I don't know. That's what the paper said. I never said that. Uh, because yeah, it's like, I, I'm I'm good at interviewing people, and I'm good at doing research, and I'm an expert at this point. I'm writing books and documenting the cases, but the actual creatures themselves, for to know the biology and other things would classify you as an expert. We're not going to know that until we have one to observe, and then all the answers will be there. Is it one dog man, or are there seven types? Like there
Yes.
there's supposed to be seven variants or whatever it is.
I
Right
didn't
now,
even I didn't know there was supposed to be seven. I myself I think I thought of like at least four, but there's seven. Okay, that's
yeah, I
jeez.
think there's supposedly seven, or this is just. I mean, we're all
That
shooting.
the experts have spoken. There's seven. Yeah,
There's seven, and I'm like, man, I'm just trying to see one here, whatever.
exactly, exactly. Now, with all these cryptid stories that you said that you're collecting all these cryptid stories. Now, have you ever heard one that made you think, oh, okay, that is like way too weird for me, even for me?
Yeah, I mean, you get ones that uh, where the claims just, I don't want to. I'm. I don't want to judge people, but I would say there are ones that give me pause and would not make the cut into me documenting that story in my book, which may encompass what I believe to be the best in the the, the totality of sightings for the lizard man or the Lake Worth monster or whatever. Yeah, stuff like, I go out there every weekend, and the baby ones sit on my lap and I pet them, and they drink a Coke, uh, or we share a Snickers, and just you know it, the logic doesn't add up, because if they were that willing to interact with humans, no matter how nice a human may be, if they were doing that, then it would we would have proof, because they would be wandering in to people's cabins and hanging out, looking for food, and like a bear. It's like, once you feed a bear, you've endangered its life, because now it goes, hey, easy food. I'm going down to the cabins, not going to go up here in the mountains where I should be. So I think it doesn't, which are they elusive or are they not? And those stories which cross the line and show that they're careless or acting in ways that are illogical or at odds with their whole thing about being elusive. Those are the ones that I'm suspect over. And of course, you get those. I mean, you get people for whatever reasons and motivations telling you stories, but and I'm happy to listen and I'm respectful of them, but those aren't making the cut, you know.
Yeah, I agree totally with you. Yeah, it's kind of, or they're going out, and every single time they go out, I have a sighting, I have a sighting, I have a sighting, and there's nothing really there, and it's like, okay, and being on in what I do with interviewing people as well, I do get people coming forward, and I listen, and I tell them, thank you for your story. I just don't think I'll be able to air it. It's just unfortunately I'll have to pass. And I try to do it that with the most respect possible. But yeah, it's difficult to kind of, we have to sort through them, and a lot of times myself, and I don't know if you do this, sometimes it's a gut feeling. I feel the sincerity or the honesty coming through, and it's like, okay, this person truly believes. And some of them, it's traumatic when they're telling these events. They're reliving it, and you can see it in their face, in their body language as well.
Right. And yeah, you do. The more you interview, the more you just get that sense, at least at your own filter, you know, and that's what I think people should set the bar for. We have to have some amount of critical thinking. It's not like, let's have a Bigfoot group and any nonsense posted on here is celebrated. It's like, that's not elevating it to any, you know, people say, well, how come mainstream science won't embrace this? Because we're already not practicing science our own selves, you know, or critical thinking. We can just, you know, as best we can, try to present the best, most credible stuff to to get more respect, you know, for what we do. You know, you can't complain if people are you know, skeptical if we're not policing our own selves. And so it's, you know, it's it's a tough little line to thread.
I agree with, I agree totally with you. It's kind of, yeah, you want to present the best evidence, but you have a lot of people kind of, and I'm going to say this with most respect, but muddying the waters. They're like, I think I think there's something here. What do you guys see? What do you see? And of course, there's pareidolia where you do see something. Sometimes you see something, but it's just leaves. It's just shadows. It's just a log off in a distance that it kind of looks funny. So we all have to approach it carefully. And I agree with you. It kind of muddies the water, and we want to put our best foot forward, but sometimes it just doesn't happen. So I asked you about maybe the one that's like, that's too weird even for me. But what about one of the stories that you were presented with that was the, I don't know, the ultimate story, someone that was the best story that you've ever heard? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, there's some good ones that really stick with you, and I know you probably have the same kind of thing where, you know, years later you're like, you know, that witness or that sighting, it had it all, you know, and it's credible. For me, it is one in the Arkansas area, in the Boggy Creek area, that I documented in Beast of Boggy Creek. And when I first started to research that, you know, that movie made a big impact on that little town back in the 1970s, and it was just deluged with monster hunters and people and sightseers, all stuff. They were done with it. They didn't want any more of it. And so as it faded out from the 70s into the 80s, a lot of that got quiet, and people thought that that was it. There was a movie made about some sightings, and then that no one saw it again. But that wasn't the truth. As I, even my own self, during the process of writing the book, people said, "You need to talk to this one guy. His name is Terry Sutton. You need to talk to Terry. If anybody saw this thing, he did. I mean, this guy is trustworthy and all that sort of stuff." And I said, okay, I need to talk to this guy. Well, turns out his sighting was in the early 1980s. And I first met his father, who still lived down there in the little town of Fouke. And Terry had since moved to Tennessee. But he said, well, Terry's never really shared this publicly, but you know, he might be willing to share with you. And so, long story short, I was able to meet with Terry and talk about his sighting. And this was just your average American guy, just a slice of American pie. He has a family, just a great guy. And I already had the sense of that from with his family because I had met them, and just everything about a guy that you would trust, a guy you would want as your friend, as your neighbor. I thought, okay, hey, this guy is going to tell me he saw a Bigfoot. So he said when he was in his teens, he was down on their property in Fouke, and it's really close to the Sulphur River, not far. The Sulphur River is close to where I had a sighting. And he said he was down fishing on their pond, and this is private property, a big chunk of land, and he was down there late evening. He was fishing, and he had heard something kind of walking around or moving in the leaves because this was February, a lot of leaf litter on the ground. He didn't think much of it, thought possibly the neighbor's bull had gotten out. He said, I just went on fishing. And he said, I kind of wouldn't have any luck. And I kind of just rode around this little dog leg in the lake. I thought I'm going to try for a few more minutes and I got to get out because it's starting to get dark. And he said, about that time, all of a sudden he heard very distinct footsteps just coming through the leaves, and there's sort of some high ravines up in and around that pond. And he said he looks up, and over the top of this little hill, he said this large, hair-covered creature, which stood probably between 6 and 7 foot tall, was walking on two legs, upright, sort of sideways. And he said it was a bit hunched over, a bit ape-like, but otherwise upright. He said this thing walked, and he said he was just sitting in the boat, extremely quiet. He said the thing didn't care or didn't see me. He said it was no more than 60 feet away, walked right by him. And he observed it. And of course, the same kind of thoughts probably as I had. Is that a person? Is a person in a costume? What is this? And as he's seeing it, of course, by then everybody in that small town knows the legend of Boggy Creek. And for a while it probably gave him pause, but it's sort of in the back of your mind. But at that moment, he said, I realized that is what many of my neighbors had claimed to see that I'm not sure I believed in or I didn't. As I observed it that close, and it never saw him, and it sort of walked up and then walked down over a hill and disappeared. And he could still hear it walking. And he said he was just shaking. And he said at that point, he just said, I got to get out of here. So he kind of rode to the edge, jumped out. And then when he got out, he listened and said, now I don't hear anything. Whatever that was stopped, and maybe it hurt him. And he said, and of course, when he's telling me the story, it is like, this is a real story. This is not made up. And he said, at that point, he heard that thing take off running. And he said he did the same and just bolted for the house. And as he drove up, his father was coming in from the Sunday evening church service. And, his dad could see was something had happened. He said, Terry, what happened? He said, Dad, I think I just saw the Fouke Monster. And so his dad didn't see it, but he was there when his son had the reaction and all that. So as he tells you this, and he told me this right there on the pond where that happened, showed me the area, and I can look at it for myself. I'm talking to his family. I'm talking to Terry, and I've talked to him multiple times. It's just that where you say, I can't explain exactly what that guy saw in terms of biology or science, but I can tell you 100% that guy saw something that cannot be explained. And that's exactly why I'm sitting here interviewing people like this, because this needs to be documented. And again, he had never told anybody, and that went into my book. And I think that has been one of my favorite ones because this is just a down home guy, and that sighting was so close.
Jeez. And do,
Crazy.
do you know how long that sighting took place for? Like, was it, a couple minutes, 20 seconds, 30 seconds, or how long did he watch that creature for?
I don't remember offhand how long he observed it. I mean, it was like, you know, 10 or 15 seconds. It was long enough, but I mean, it covered that ground and went up and over that ravine long enough to observe it, in my opinion, to rule out other things, because that's the problem. You see some dark, hairy thing for really quick. So it was really fast. And then just to sort of I don't know, add stuff. And these are the things that, as you continue to research in one area, like I have in that particularly over the years, we actually shot an episode of Shipping Wars on that property. Don't ask me why I was on Shipping Wars, but occasionally shows want to do a Bigfoot thing. I actually asked them if we could just shoot down there because they're just friends in Fouke and have a good piece of land. But during the filming of that, and this was years and years later. I think we shot that in about 2014 or 15. So many, many years after Terry had that sighting. One of the cameramen, they all thought it was funny, Bigfoot, they're out there. Well, suddenly they're all back over by the gear truck. I was like, what's going on? One of them said he saw something in the woods. And so
No way.
I'm like, oh, okay. So now it's not that funny, right? They were all huddled over there because it's starting to get dark. And later I talked to that cameraman. He said, I saw something running diagonally through the woods a lot faster than a person could possibly navigate. It's brushy and vines. And he said, I got it on film, whatever it was. Well, it's not in the episode. I don't know. But of course, he doesn't own the film because he was just, a contract cameraman. But um, so over time, many little things have happened that sort of continue to happen in that area where, again, I feel like there was a really awesome witness. So that continues to strengthen um, these cases.
Wow. That's awesome, and even have that cooperation there with the cameraman. And I wonder where that piece of film went. You'd think that they'd want that in there, but it just seems to have gotten some legs and disappeared.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously the problem is if anybody's ever been on one of these film shoots, they shoot so much film. He was back in there. What he was doing was filming B-roll. So you'll have one guy that films, shots of the woods and maybe getting the sun going down, all that other stuff, and then you'll have a crew filming, us or whatever we're doing. So they have that, for cut-ins. That's what he was doing. So he was off in the woods by himself with just that camera. And now that this is private property, even to that, to this day, where I've been on numerous times. Nobody runs across your property. There's nobody on your property. There's no kids. There's nothing. And if he said he saw an upright figure running through there, well, I'm not sure what else that would be, um, but that they probably shot a bunch of film, and he may have told them that I think I got it, but whether the editors registered that or whether they saw it and just it baffles my mind that they wouldn't use it. But he said, I don't know why they didn't put that in there.
Jeez, that would have been awesome. That would have been awesome. Now I know we're coming closer to the end here, but I have a couple more questions though. So if you so it if you could spend a week, and money's not an issue or anything, if you could spend a week investigating a cryptid anywhere in the world, which one would it be? Why would you be going to investigate this cryptid?
Well, if I had the budget, I think I would choose the orang pendek in Sumatra. That's in the Indonesian area. Sumatra is an island that has a lot of rainforest on it, and over the years, there's been very credible sightings of uh, what people report as a 4 foot tall, upright, bipedal, hair covered hominid of some kind that would, I mean, we would think of like a small Bigfoot, if you will. But the thing about the orang pendek is that there's been some really, really good sightings, some very credible sightings. Wildlife photographers. A few of my friends have gone over there in relation to shooting shows. and things like that. And even some have been over there, but it's hard to navigate those foreign countries and to get supplies and do all that. It's very dangerous. A lot of tigers. You have to know what you're doing, but um, it takes a lot of budget. But that's one that I really felt like it. Man, if any of these can be proven, the Rang Pendic has a high likelihood of existing, and that's not coincidentally where they found um, fossilized remains of Homo floresiensis, which is what they call the Hobbit, or it's a relic hominid species that almost matches what people are reporting over there, the natives and other people who've gone there. So that would be my top choice.
Cool. Yeah, I was near that area once, and I had no idea at all that that was there. So that is interesting. And I had, and so what's on the forecast for what is next on your list of where you're going or what are you doing next? What are you, or if you're writing a new book?
Well, yeah, it right now. I've just been doing some research on strange sightings, if you will, sort of a grab bag of stuff. Because a lot of times when I focus on one certain book, I have to stick with that, and because I get real in depth. And but as you go, you get these bizarre sort of sightings that don't fit with with any certain theme, I guess. So there's been some of those that I've followed up on, just kind of compiling some sightings. I'm going to be doing something soon down in an area what's called the Big Thicket in southeast Texas, and that's an area where there's been a long history of Bigfoot sightings and other stuff, ghost lights and all manner of weirdness. But we're gonna do a little expedition, I guess, if you will, there and do some filming while we're at it. Coming up in the spring, so that's going to be fun. I love the Big Thicket. My family's from East Texas, and I remember as a kid when I first heard the Big Thicket, I thought, well, that's got to be cool. I don't know what that is, so I'm going to get to spend a little time in that forested area, which is going to be cool. And beyond that, of course, I have the usual slew of um, events, Bigfoot conferences and things where I can share and speak about things around the country. So those are always kind of happening. I kind of blocked them out for a whole 6 months, and I have some music gigs too. We're playing some shows, and I got to go play even a festival in Europe. So um, yeah, it's sort of a lot of stuff, but it's all good.
That is awesome. Maybe one of these days, I don't think I told you that I'm located in Mexico. Maybe one of these days you come down to Mexico and search for the. Well, I won't say the chupacabra, but here there's aluches. Aluches is the big thing that is here. If you because I'm in the Yucatan Peninsula, if you mention the chupacabra here, people will laugh at you. But you talk about the aluches, that's something completely different. You can't throw a rock without hitting someone who's had an experience.
Oh, that's cool, and I love that. I love the localized, that sort of thing where, especially if you can go to an area and you get to know the people, you'll find a lot of stories that are not on the internet, and uh, you learn about what the locals, what their terminology is for any sort of creature. So I like that. It gives, it's got personality instead of just we're hunting Bigfoot all around the world. It's just Bigfoot. Well, these other creatures have specific names in their specific areas, and that's always cool.
Exactly. I agree. Well, one last time before we head out of here, Lyle, is there anything you want to plug here before we head out?
Well, I just appreciate you having me on. Always fun to talk about these topics, and if people want to know more about all my various stuff, you can go to lyleblackburn.com, and it's got links to my various endeavors, the list of my books and the movies I've been involved in, and just everything. So, and the music, you can find links to my band Ghoultown. So, yeah, check that out, lyleblackburn.com.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much, Lyle, and I really appreciate your time.
Absolutely.
All right, everyone. That was an awesome conversation with Lyle Blackburn, and it's always it's always awesome, like digging into these cryptids with someone who truly knows his stuff, and he's been out there. He is boots on the ground. So, whether you're a believer or a skeptic, or even if you're just here for the stories, there is no denying that these legends they hook us. They just keep us looking. They keep us searching. So, again, big thanks to Lyle for joining me tonight. And until next time, everyone, keep your curiosity wandering, keep the light lit, and always find your way home.
Beneath the stars where shadows grow, the Nephilim's echoes whisper low. Bigfoot roams through the forest deep, and Dogman prowls where the brave won't sleep. Across lost history we wonder why, seeking the truth that time tried to hide. Keep your curiosities wandering and the light lit, through the darkness don't ever quit. In the codex, the mysteries come, and always find your way back home. UFOs streak through the velvet skies, aliens watch with unblinking eyes. The paranormal hums where silence breaks, in the void of secrets a lantern wakes. Through hidden realms of stories untold, the cold gas flame is a light to hold. Keep your curiosities wandering and the light lit, through the darkness don't ever quit. In the codex, the mysteries come, and always find your way back home. UFOs streak through the velvet skies, aliens watch with unblinking eyes. The paranormal hums where silence breaks, in the void of secrets a lantern wakes. Through hidden realms and stories untold, the cold gas flame is a light to hold. Keep your curiosities wandering and the light lit, through the darkness don't ever quit. In the codex, the mysteries come, and always find your way back home. Legends rise from the earth's deep core, a lost legacy we can't ignore. With every step, the veil grows thin, revealing worlds where the strange begins. Keep your curiosities wandering and the light lit, through the darkness don't ever quit. In the codex, the mysteries come, and always find your way back home. Giants, cryptids that call,